In this video, I'm going to talk about writing blocks. If you never start, then you will never fail. But you will also never publish. So before we get started, I think it's really important for us to have a discussion and be honest with ourselves about what are the main obstacles that you face to writing. There are lots of writing blocks. Some of them are self-imposed, some of them have to do with external things. But the reality is that writing doesn't always just happen. So, one of the big things is that procrastination often happens when we want to avoid negative feelings. Negative feelings, including feelings of anxiety, are totally normal. Writing does not come naturally. No one is born with an innate ability to write. Some are more inclined towards writing, but all writers are trained and have experience in some way. Writing, while we're in a scientific vein, is still a creative task. There is no one way to write a sentence. There is no one way to organize a paragraph. There's no one way to frame a research project. And when we lean into creating something that is perfect, we find that we have a tendency to avoid because we're afraid of it not being perfect. One of the biggest and easiest ways to avoid writing is by procrastinating. And this is when we feel like we haven't read enough to get started. However, I want you to stop procrastinating. You've read enough and you can fill in the gaps as you go. I encourage you to leave holes in your manuscript that can be filled in later. In fact, you can even write a note that says, I need to look up X, Y, and Z, or this needs to go here, or come back to this. These are perfectly acceptable ways to enable you to remove some of the blocks to moving forward with your writing. Another thing that I want to highlight is that I don't want you to wait until you're in the mood to write. There's lots of research that shows that emotion follows action. So you start writing and then you get in the mood to write. Otherwise, you may never be in the mood. And my advice to do that is to start with an easy task. So when you sit down at your computer, pick the easiest thing. Like maybe there's a table that you need to reformat, or you need to reread a certain paragraph and look at spelling or grammar. Or you need to add a definition. Another tactic is to describe what you need to write about. I do this quite a lot when I kind of find myself feeling stuck and I want to move on to the next part. I'll just make a note that says, okay, come back to this and write about this particular topic, or do a summary of, X, Y, and Z on this particular theory or method, etc. And in that way, it removes some of the blocks to be able to move forward. Without going too deep into the research on human behavior, I want to lightly introduce the integrated behavioral model attributed to Isaac Eisen and Martin Fishbein. The IBM is a framework to conceptualize intentional behavior based on the theory of planned behavior combined with the theory of reasoned action. It assumes rationality and agency and accounts for demographic, environmental factors combined with habit and capability. The reason I introduce it is because it might be useful for you to think about different mechanisms that could be impacting your behavior to sit down and write your journal paper. Moving from right to left, the IBM posits 5 mechanisms comprising knowledge and skills to perform the behavior. Second is salience, or the importance that you place on that behavior. Third relates to intention, or your decision to perform the behavior. Then there are environmental constraints, which could range from having or not having a working computer to needing to go catch a bus. Um, and then finally, the 5th mechanism that's identified in the IBM is habit. So, if we focus on the middle piece, the intention or decision to perform the behavior, we can extract a little bit more detail and variation in some of the factors that may be enabling or preventing you from performing the activity, which is sitting down and writing your journal paper. So, let's start from the, the top middle column. This first one comprises attitude, experiential attitude, and instrumental attitude. It's about how you feel about performing the activity as well as whether you believe you will have a successful outcome. So it's somewhat akin to confidence. In the middle are perceived norms um, related to, first of all, the injunctive norm, which is what you think others expect from you versus a descriptive norm, which is what you see others doing. So it's about expectations. At the bottom is personal agency. This is about your belief in how easy or difficult it is to perform the behavior, which is your perceived control, weighed against your personal ability to actually perform the task, which is your self efficacy. So it might be difficult to write a paper, but you have confidence that you can still do it. Or you might believe that it's easy because you can do things like set up your workspace and have all your notes, but your personal agency is compromised because you don't feel like you'll actually be able to perform the task and complete your manuscript. So I don't expect you to work through each part of the IBM, but rather I think that it can help you more specifically pinpoint where blocks emerge so that you can approach them in a more targeted way to try to address or overcome them. Many of us know all too well that writing is full of rejection. Yet even excellent writers experience criticism. The reality is that if you write, you will be rejected. Now I want you to take time to reflect. What feelings come up when you think about writing? When did you have positive feelings about writing? Are you writing about topics that you're passionate about? What aspect or part of the writing process gives you the most headache? Take a few minutes, think about these questions and any other things that come up related to potential writing blocks. Hit the pause button and come back when you're finished. Next, it's time to choose your writing spot. It's important to have a place that's just ready for you to sit down and write. Choose a place where you can write regularly, make it comfortable, convenient, and non distracting. Do you need a hot coffee? Get one in advance. Add a picture of your pet, or children, or family, or friends. Do you need a cushion? Do you need a shawl? Is it chilly? Is it hot? Do you need special lighting? Do you want to put jazz on in the background? Do you need a scented candle? Whatever it is, make this space enjoyable for you and do it in advance so that you're not fiddling around every time you sit down. Another thing to think about is, do you need a preparatory activity? Perhaps a brief walk around the block. Again, that freshly brewed cup of coffee in your favorite mug. Or instrumental music in the background. All of these things can help you sort of transition from the chaos of the day to be able to sit down and focus for those few moments where you're just working on your journal paper. I also want to urge you to change your spot if it stops working for you or if you can't get to it. You can consider carrying your paper around with you so that you can write while you're waiting for an appointment, waiting for the bus, in between meetings, etc. So here is a little spreadsheet where you can think about which days of the weeks that you're going to be writing and what your regular writing site is, and if there's an alternative writing site that makes sense when your regular space doesn't work. So now you know your unique writing blocks, but the real challenge is actually getting it done. So you have your writing spot, and now it's time to create a writing plan. One thing to consider is to get a writing partner. I don't necessarily mean a co author, although they will definitely hold you accountable. A writing partner is someone you can check in with and bounce ideas off of and problem solve who has a neutral perspective. In the future, I plan to offer opportunities on this website to match up writing partners. So please check back often or reach out to me to inquire when that might happen. Another thing is to write a little every day. I think this is one of the most important skills you can develop. Even if it's only 15 minutes a day, you can create a habit that enables you to stay attached and thinking about your work and makes it easier to pick up where you left off. So, what I want you to do is to set aside 15 to 60 minutes a day for about 5 days a week to write. Now, I want you to anticipate obstacles and interruptions. Writing in short blocks creates a habit, and it also takes the pressure off getting it all done in one sitting. Give yourself a small task to achieve each writing session. By keeping in constant contact with your paper, it will be easy to pick up where you left off. And you might find yourself thinking about it throughout the day, and you end up working through a problematic part when you're doing something else. One trick is to keep the paper open on your computer so that you can dip into it anytime you have a few minutes during the day. If you can manage it, block off at least one day where you have 1 to 4 hours of uninterrupted writing time each week. This is in addition to 15 minutes on the other 4 days. Short sessions are best for revising, long sessions best for drafting. Finally, pick a time a day when you are most energetic. Are you a morning or an evening person? Lean into that. So what I want you to do is fill in the calendar that I've provided in a separate document with 5 days each week with 15, 30, 60, or 90 minutes of writing. Block out days in advance that will be difficult due to other obligations or events. Fill in specific times of the day when you can commit to writing. Then document your time for week 1, week 2, and for however long you think it's useful. Notice patterns. Are there certain days of the week where you write more than the allotted time that you gave yourself? Are there certain days when you can't quite reach that minimum time? Here's an example of a spreadsheet that I've filled in and used in the past, just to get you started. The reality about publishable papers is that most published papers only make a narrow contribution to the state of the research. I want you to have confidence that your paper doesn't have to be heavily theoretical or framed by complex theory. Your research doesn't have to be groundbreaking. That one important idea is stronger than 1,000 interesting ideas. And importantly, no idea is original. Someone else has published on your topic. What matters is what's new and what you are bringing to the table. Finally, here are some references and resources.